I want to take it back a step, just a little bit more basics in regards to governance and what does it mean in that definition of communication. Some examples maybe of where we would be using family governance versus, we're just having fun. This is business as usual. Ella, do you want to speak to that a little bit in terms of your experience with that?
So the question is around where is the governance actually going to move the family forward versus the family time together?
That, and I would maybe think about, let's see if I can say, an example of a governance situation. What good governance looks like. Versus...
Okay. Sure. I'm going to give you an example of one of our clients that they are actually in airport manufacturing. And so the business itself is a G3. So the dad is in place right now. It's a female owned business, but mom and dad in place. And then the generation 3 is in her late 30s. And as the airports have all shut down, they have had to look at what they thought was these booming contracts that would never end, and now complete shutdown. So how do you lay off employees with integrity? How are you managing control and roles in leadership as everyone has to morph in these business roles really, really rapidly? And so the father is used to showing up every day and checking on the airport systems. Like, that's how he shows up. He's in his 60s. He likes to golf all the time, but like, that's his thing. And to be able to be like, Dad, you can't go in, you need to stay home. And there's some tension there, but how do you actually begin to let something like COVID explore the realms of like, okay, well, I don't want to go back to doing this. I like the golfing, but how are we going to, with integrity, take care of our employees, furlough them, bring them back, keep our family enterprise running, and keep the dynamics between parent, child, and sibling all working so that we'll actually show up to Thanksgiving and not kill each other.
Agreed. Thank you. Steve, you want to throw an example in there?
Well, what I would like to do first actually is just the expression family governance. To me, I usually say that it has 3 main components, and you already addressed actually 2 of them. So how we make decisions together is number 1. Number 2 is communication. How do we communicate together? And that includes, when do we have meetings? How do we meet? Who's in charge of the meetings? Do we have it formally set up or not? And doesn't mean that formal is necessarily better than informal if informal gets it done. And the third component is, how are we going to solve problems together? And I know that in some ways that's sort of just a subset of the first one. How are we going to make decisions together? But it's like a flashing red light version of how are we going to solve make decisions together. And right now there are a lot of flashing red lights. So it's just bringing to the fore a lot of things where family members are realizing, oh, wait a sec, how is this going to affect me? And do I have a say? And who's deciding what's being decided? And who gets to decide and who should get to decide? And who's deciding things now because it's an emergency? Whereas if things were more normal, would we have taken the time as a family to come together and make decisions, and figuring out the differences between all of those things?
Right. It's complicated. And that's why these conversations and sharing with one another is so important, because when we look at, what could be versus what is, you need those examples. You need to see, other people talking about these things and where have you been, because you don't know what you don't know. And so just because we've always done it a certain way doesn't mean we have to do it that way going forward. And with additional layers of generations being added, it gets more and more complicated. So that's, it's exponential. So
there's a little example in my family council of this where it took, 70 years to change one of the bylaws that like parcel post had to be the communication method when everyone who's under 50 is transient and moves
Agree. Yeah, and it's neat that you say that, because I have been introduced to that life because of Kay, her sister. It's really incredible. Her and her husband live in an RV for the last 5 years, and it's like they've joined us on some of our fireside chats that we've been having for clients just to kind of bring them up to date. But they're like, so where are you right now? Oh, we're here. And 2 months later, they're someplace else. They're never in the same place for more than a quarter. So and people are doing that now. And my team has pushed us to say, what is this going to look like for us when this is all over? I'm like, I think we have to be open to things are going to be different.